The former Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, joins me right now. He is the author of What Conservatives Believe, Rediscovering the Conservative Conscience, which you can find at Amazon.com, wherever fine books are sold. And, sir, I only thought I was just here to keep your seat warm until you came back to radio. Is that the announcement you're making here today? Right now? You're coming back to WIBC?
Well, not quite, but I'm awful glad to be on with you this morning. And Tony, just thanks for your clarion conservative voice. And also, obviously, from our home here in Zionsville, our hearts just go out to all the Hoosier families impacted by the flooding over the last several days. WIBC and you personally have done an extraordinary job telling the story, making relief available, and the loss of life and the devastation of property. I really commend Governor Braun. I commend our delegation in Washington, and of course, President Trump for moving so swiftly to make resources available. But prayers and our hearts are with every Hoosier family that's listening, that's been impacted by these floods. And I know that help is there and more help is on the way.
And we're going to be working on that as a station, and of course as a state. The book is interesting in that you're making this contrast, this conversation of there is such a thing as conservatism. It is different than what we're seeing, and it was always the contrast that I saw between you and President Trump in serving as vice president in that first term. As you describe it, what is the issue? What is the issue that Republicans have right now?
Yeah, well, for decades, Republicans were really defined by that broad mainstream conservative agenda that you and I embrace, which is an agenda of a strong defense, American leadership in the world, limited government, less taxes, and traditional values. Our battle for most of the decades in the last 50 years has been against a traditional liberal Democratic Party. But the first change I write about in my book is that the Democratic Party has been overtaken by the progressive left. I mean, you've covered it quite thoroughly here on your broadcast, Tony. But, we've seen the rise of socialist candidates, the open embrace of socialist and even communist ideologies within the Democratic ranks. And so that's one slide. But what I also wanted people to see, and you said it at the opening of this segment, that there has been a new threat to that traditional conservative agenda that's emerged from the populist right that embraces protectionism, isolationism, with marginalized values like the right to life. And I say that acknowledging first and foremost, the new Trump administration has gotten a lot right. I think standing up to Iran as no previous president ever did, taking the fight directly to the mullahs in Tehran, standing with Israel, extending all those tax cuts that we passed a decade ago, unleashing American energy. There's all been great progress there, but there are voices and forces afoot within the party that would want to change the Republican Party to that populist kind of big government, isolationist, protectionist approach. And I wrote the book to really start a conversation that I hope continues thoroughly over the next 2.5 years.
The very concept of protectionism, talking to the former vice president of the United States, Mike Pence, when people hear that, they say, well, you have China, which manipulates its currency, right? And they make our lives difficult and the power of the dollar difficult. You do have places where we could say this is unfair trade, that this is not a proper or valuable arrangement. You could take a look at just NATO spending, where the United States was spending and other nations were not. And they say, what's wrong with a little bit of protectionism? How do you answer that?
Well, number one, I say I 1,000% agree with everything you just said. In fact, I think the Trump-Pence years really changed the national consensus on China. We recognized that China had been engaged in decades of trade abuses, intellectual property theft. We imposed $250 billion in tariffs on China. They're there to this day. China is the exception. Trade abusers are the exception. But a year ago, when the president came out with his Liberation Day broad-based tariffs against friend and foe alike, I called it. It's essentially the largest peacetime tax increase in American history. I was pleased the Supreme Court turned it back. But as you can see in the headlines, the administration has come with a whole new range of tariff proposals that ultimately American businesses and American consumers pay American tariffs. That's fundamental economics. It's one of the reasons why most Hoosiers understand that what we make here, what we grow here, we sell to the world. And our goal should be free trade with free nations. And I make that case in my new book, What Conservatives Believe.
Talking to the former Vice President, Mike Pence. The book is What Conservatives Believe, Rediscovering the Conservative Conscience. And what people like yourself will be called, and you've heard this a million times in your life, is that you, sir, are a neocon. And if they could then hiss at you and put up the Kavorka as if somehow you were walking with plague, they would. The neocon labeling, does it move anymore? Does it mean anything anymore? Is there a value to being a neocon?
Well, I don't know that these labels ever had much purchase. But look, when Osama bin Laden attacked the United States 25 years ago next month, from his perch in Afghanistan, we took the fight to Afghanistan, never imagining that it would turn into a forever war. And I'm someone that believes that the proper use of the U.S. military is when you go to war to win. You state your objectives, you achieve your objectives, you complete them, and you're out. And the truth is that the critics of forever wars, from the president on down, and to me in my time, make a great point that we saw Afghanistan and Iraq evolve into nation building. But that doesn't mean that you pull in the shutters and allow authoritarian regimes like Iran to menace, like Russia to attempt to redraw international lines by force. That as the leader of the free world, I think the United States has always understood that we have an opportunity to stand with those that are defending their freedom. And it's, I think the administration's in a better place on Ukraine right now, and I welcome that. But the stops and starts in support for Ukraine after that brutal and unprovoked invasion by Russia now more than 4 years ago is, again, emblematic of this sentiment that says that we can't solve our problems here at home and still be leader of the free world. And
do you believe that?
That?
Do you believe that is the issue with populism, that it leads to isolationism?
It does, and even to worse. I mean, you've spoke forcefully about the way isolationism, particularly applied to Israel, drifts quickly into anti-Semitic rhetoric that has been increasingly tolerated for years on the progressive left, even among members of Congress who've engaged in anti-Semitic rhetoric. But it's even gained some purchase on the populist right. And, there's no place in America for anti-Semitism or anti-Semitic rhetoric in any form. And so I think that's where it goes. I really do. Look, I understand the frustration that people feel as they look at a $40 trillion national debt, as they look at an increasingly dangerous world. But at the end of the day, I think hewing to our roots of the ideals and principles that are enshrined in our Declaration are outlined and defended in the Constitution of the United States, that's still the pathway forward to a free and prosperous and secure America.
Mike Pence, former Vice President of the United States, the book, What Conservatives Believe, Rediscovering the Conservative Conscience. Sir, I appreciate you taking the time. It's good to talk to you. I hope to get to do it again in the very, very near future. Thank you, sir.
Tony, I'll look forward to it. And we'll be at the Indiana Historical Society Thursday for a book signing and remarks. If people want to join us this Thursday evening, 5:30 to 7. And if Tony Katz made a surprise appearance, that'd make my whole day.
My gosh, now I'm on the clock and I'm under the gun. No pressure, guilted like only my grandmother could. The Vice President. Mike Pence, sir, it's on the calendar. It's happening Thursday. I'll talk more about it. Thank you, sir. Matt Bear's got traffic. Matt.